It's hazy, but your vibe is crystal clear. Got me thinking about a future, not just right here. They can see the way I'm looking, ain't no doubt. It's ELA, yeah, that's what I'm all about. Eternal love.
The Life of a Jackal. Book 1, Chapter 5. The Prom. The Prom Gambit. Prom season has a way of exposing who you are and who you're pretending to be. The older me can see that clearly now. Back then, I thought it was just a dance, a night to dress up, take pictures, and maybe get a kiss if the universe was on point. But prom is a stage, a test, a mirror, a moment where a young man's confidence, strategy, and sense of self all get put under the lights. And for me, it was the night I learned that a player isn't defined by what he has. He's defined by how he moves with what he doesn't have. The tux shop. Young me is working at the tuxedo shop like it's a Wall Street gig. I'm moving inventory, flipping used tuxes for cash, stacking money like I'm building a future. Older me smiles at the hustle now because that was the first time I understood the power of resourcefulness. A player doesn't wait for opportunities. He creates them. He finds angles. He sees value where others see clutter. I bought my own class ring with that money, not because I needed it, but because I wanted to feel like I earned something, like I was stepping into manhood on my own terms. But even with all that hustle, I was still broke in the ways that mattered to a high school kid. I didn't have a car. And Donita, she wasn't trying to pull up to no prom in no backseat of my mom's car with David driving. Her pride wouldn't allow it. Her fire wouldn't allow it. Older me understands that now. A fiery woman needs to feel seen, valued, elevated. She needs to feel like the moment matches her energy. Young me didn't have the means to give her all that, but I had the mindset, the strategic sacrifice. This is where the player philosophy really started for me. Not in the club, not in the bedroom, not in the moment of conquest, but in the moment of selflessness. I told her to go with Chris. Chris was my guy. Cool, smooth, and he had a car. He had the look. He was the safe choice. The one who could get her the interest she wanted. Older me can admit this now. That decision hurt a little bit. It felt like handing over my spot, like stepping aside. Player isn't threatened by the moment. He's focused on the outcome. I wasn't thinking about the interest. I was thinking about that night, the connection, the long game. And that's the difference between a boy and a strategist. The Spencer jacket, a symbol. If I wasn't arriving in a limo, I was arriving in the look. Working at the tuck shop gave me access to something nobody else had ever seen, the Spencer jacket. Because remember, our store was the plant store, so all other stores in the city came to us to get their tuxedos, and we sent them out to those stores. And I was usually the one fulfilling some of those orders. So the Spencer jacket was waistline, sharp lines, a tuxedo jacket that looked like it belonged in a fashion spread. It wasn't even on the market yet. Older me sees the symbolism now. That jacket wasn't just clothing. It was identity. It was intention. It was the first time I understood that style isn't about impressing people. It's about announcing yourself without speaking. Everybody else would have the traditional tails. That's so played out. I had the Spencer jacket with the peg leg pants. Baggies. Yeah, nobody else had that but me, because both those items just came out. Then I went for a color scheme only I could pull off. Half royal blue, half purple, cummerbund, purple bow, tie on my neck, royal blue tie around my arm. Yeah, ain't no such thing as overdoing it. You just doing it. Young me wasn't trying to fit in. I was trying to set the bar. Older me sees the lesson. Player doesn't follow trends. He creates moments. The entrance. My mom dropped me off half a block away. I stepped out the car, straightened my jacket, walked towards the building like I was walking into a stage. And when I walked into the prom, heads turned, people whispered, the room shifted. Not because I was loud, not because I was flashy, but because I was intentional. Older me now knows presence is silent. Confidence is quiet. Real swagger doesn't need volume. The DJ twist. This is where the night took a turn. There were 2 proms happening in the same building. Ours downstairs, another school's upstairs. I ran into my homeboy, Thaddeus, who was the DJ, who introduced me to a girl from the other prom. She was beautiful, dressed to kill, and she was there to see him, but he was busy, and introduced her to me to show her around. He thought I was the safe choice, just like I thought Chris was the safe choice. But what he didn't know, that I was the worst choice that he could have made. Yeah, we danced, we laughed, we vibed. Young me wasn't thinking about consequences. I was thinking about the moment, the music, the energy, the attention. Older me sees the lesson. The player must always be aware of the room he's in and the room he's not in. Because while I was upstairs, Donita and Chris had just arrived downstairs. And the rumor mill in high school moves faster than the Chicago house music on a Saturday night, which is exactly what we were listening to. Nature was some hot chick. By the time I made it back downstairs, the rumor mill had ran its course and did its due diligence. The fire ignites. Donita was in tears, not because of the girl, though that didn't help, but because the night had already gone sideways. Chris showed up in a white suit with colors that clashed horribly with her yellow dress. Her purse strap had snapped. She felt embarrassed, unseen, unmatched. Older me understands her fire now. A fiery woman doesn't cry because she's weak. She cries because she feels deeply, because she cares, because she wants the moment to matter. Young me stepped in without hesitation. Let me see it, baby girl. I fixed her purse on the spot, calmed her down, brought her back to center. And since I spent the first hour exploring the building, I knew exactly where to go. A quiet corner, a hidden spot, a moment away from the noise. I didn't tell her I'd been there before, but I had. For 15 minutes, the world disappeared. Not explicit, not graphic, just connection, heat, closeness. The kind of moment that changes the way 2 people look at each other. Older me sees the truth. That was the night I learned that intimacy isn't about the act. It's about the energy, the fix, the moment. There are some moments in a young man's life when the world slows down just enough for him to see himself clearly. Not who he's pretending to be, not who he hopes to be, but who he is in that exact breath. Prom night gave me one of those moments. Older me can see it with perfect clarity now. This was the night I learned that presence is more powerful than appearance. The steadiness can calm fire, and that sometimes the most intimate moments in life have nothing to do with touch. They're about being the one person who can bring someone back to themselves. The fire in her eyes. Young me walks back into the prom. Spencer jacket crisp, confidence high, thinking the night's still mine to shape. But the room tells me otherwise. I see Donita before she sees me, standing off to the side, shoulders tight, eyes glossy, lips pressed together like she's holding back a storm. Chris is next to her, looking helpless. He's a good dude, but this moment is above his pay grade. Older me understands her now. She wasn't crying because of me, the girl upstairs, or even a broken purse strap. She was crying because the night she imagined, the night she built up in her mind, was slipping away from her. A fiery woman feels disappointment like a spark hitting gasoline. It's not the moment itself. It's the meaning behind it. Young me didn't have the language for that yet, but I felt it. I felt their energy pulling at me like gravity. So I walked back over to her. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Presence is a pace. The fix. I told you about how I fixed the purse, but what I didn't tell you is how I did it. Told her let me see it softly. She didn't argue. She didn't snap. Didn't fire off one of those sharp little comments she was famous for. She just handed me the purse. Older me smiles at that now, because trust doesn't always show up in big declarations. Sometimes it shows up in quiet. Sometimes it lets you take something broken out of their hands. I fixed the strap with the same calm I use in the work study when she leaned over my desk and asked for my help. Same patience, same focus, same unspoken understanding. When I handed it back, she looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time that night. Not the guy who danced with another girl, not the guy who told her to go with Chris, but the guy who could steady her fire without dimming it. Older me knows now that's the moment she chose me. Not the dance, not the prom, not the outfit. Me. Told you about the secluded corner, didn't I? Let me reemphasize. Young me didn't plan what happened next. I just knew she needed space. Not from the night, not from the people, but from the feeling of being overwhelmed. And because I spent the first hour exploring the building, like I said before, I've been there before. I knew exactly where to go. I said, come on. She followed. No questions, no hesitations, just trust. I led her to a quiet corner, a hallway tucked behind a banquet room, dimly lit, empty, still. The music from the dance floor thumped faintly through the walls, a blend of R&B, warmth, hip-hop swagger, and that unmistakable Chicago house music underneath. The soundtrack to our youth, the soundtrack of the city, the soundtrack of this moment. She leaned against the wall, arms folded, breathing uneven. You okay? I asked. Shook her head, not in anger, in vulnerability. And that's when the fire softened. Moment. Older me can see it clearly now. This wasn't a romantic moment. It wasn't a physical moment. It was an emotional moment. The kind that stays with long after the night ends. Young me stepped closer, not touching her, just close enough for her to feel my presence. You look beautiful tonight, I said quietly. Her eyes lifted, not fiery, not defensive, just open. And in that small, quiet space, something shifted between us. Something unspoken, something real, something that didn't need to be named to be understood, something I practiced just moments before so I knew how to handle the moment. She exhaled long and slow, like she'd been holding her breath all night. Then she stepped into me, not for anything physical, but for comfort, for grounding, for connection. I held her, not tight, not possessively, just enough. Older me knows now that was the first time I understood the power of being someone's calm, the power of being steady when they're unraveling, the power of presence. A player isn't the man who excites a woman. He's the man who centers her. And in that hallway, with the music humming through the walls, and then the night still unfolding around us, I learned that lesson without even knowing I was learning it. One moment, I'm lighting somebody's fire. I'm lighting a fire underneath someone, making them burn with passion, making them burn with the thought and the feeling of my touch, making them melt, making them want me more. The next minute with someone else, letting them know that they're seen, that they're heard, that they're comforted, that I'm the rock for them. The return to the dance. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were clear, her shoulders relaxed, her fire was still there, but it wasn't burning out of control anymore. I calmed that. You good? I asked. She nodded, and we walked back into the prom together. Not as dates, not as a couple, but as two people who had crossed an invisible line into something deeper. Older me can see it now. The moment in the hallway was a real prom, the real connection, the real turning point. Everything after that, the dance, the pictures, the laughter, well, that was just celebration. Chapter 7. The teddy bear in the car. Prom night didn't leave me when I walked out the building. It stayed on me, in my chest, in my head, in the way my body felt too awake to sleep. Something about the way Donita leaned into me in that hallway, the way her fire softened just enough for me to see the girl underneath. It stuck. On the way home, I was replaying everything. Not the drama, not the upstairs girl. Well, kinda her too. Because she slid me her number and she wanted me to come out with the rest of them. But Donita was on my mind. Just her. Her eyes, her voice, the way she breathed. She finally calmed down. I didn't have a name for it, but I knew I wasn't done with it that night. The gesture. By the time I got home from prom, I was still in my tux, still carrying the whole night on me. I had ran upstairs to say goodbye to the other girl. She kept me there for a moment because she didn't want me to leave. She wanted me to leave with them, but I had other plans. I told her, we'll catch up. We'll catch up. Maybe this weekend, some other time. She was fly. Trust me, I just had something I had to do. Ain't nothing worse than you going to the hotel or home with a girl and you think somebody else doing the same with your girl. Nah, I ain't have enough mind control for that, Debo. I had to make sure I had all my ducks in a row. So when I got home, I sat on the edge of my bed, loosened my bow tie, and stared at the phone. I wasn't tired. I wasn't ready for the night to be over. Something in me was still wide awake. I waited for almost an hour, getting upset with every minute passing, imagining what she might be doing that late at night. Thinking, man, maybe I should have went out with old girl. Maybe I should have kicked it with her. It's almost like an hour and she ain't called me yet. What? What her and Chris doing, man? Damn, he hitting that. Man, I should have did my thing. Then the phone rang. I grabbed it. After the first ring, into the second ring. Didn't want to seem desperate. Hello? Her voice came through soft, softer than I'd ever heard it. She didn't sound fiery. She didn't sound upset. She sounded relieved. We talked. Not about the drama, not about the girl upstairs, not about the broken purse, the tears, or where she'd been. Just us, just the night. Just the way everything felt different. But as we talked, something really started bothering me. She wasn't mentioning the gifts, because before I went home, I stopped by her house and put some roses and a huge teddy bear that I got for her. I laid it up against her door, her front door. Glad nobody didn't steal it up there in Chicago, but it was late enough. It's like 1, 2 o'clock. Wasn't nobody gonna be out. And she didn't mention it at all. She didn't mention none of the gifts. Not the teddy bear, not the roses, not the card, nothing. And the longer we talked, the more it sat on me. I kept thinking, did she not like it? Did she think it was too much? Did she think it was corny? Finally, I couldn't take it no more. Hey, did you get what I left you? There was a pause. A real one. The kind where you can hear someone thinking. What are you talking about? She asked. My heart dropped for a second. Then I really started thinking. Are people up that late in Chicago? Heart dropped, then it hit me. She must have gotten home before I did, before I dropped everything off. So she went straight home. She left the prom before I did. And I said, I left something on your doorstep. She didn't say a word. She just dropped the phone. I heard footsteps, fast, excited, running. Then the front door opened, then a scream. Not a scared scream, a happy one, a surprised one, a joyful one. She came back to the phone breathless. My God, I didn't know. I didn't see it. I didn't know you left this. There we go. That's what I wanted to hear. Her voice was completely different now. Bright, excited, overflowing. All that emotion she held back earlier came rushing through the phone like she couldn't contain it. She kept talking fast, tripping over her words, telling me how beautiful it was, how she couldn't believe I did that, how she didn't even know what to say. And I just sat there, smiling, still in my tux, still feeling the night on my skin, listening to her excitement fill the room like music. That moment, her scream, her joy, her voice shaking with surprise, that was the real end of the prom night. Not the dance, not the pictures, not the hallway. This was the moment that stayed with me. The recruiter call. The day finally came, and so did the call. Out of nowhere, as we were watching TV, hoping that they just forgot about me. The phone rang. It was the Navy recruiter. His voice was all business. Your delayed entry program is over. It's time to report. You have a week. I'll call you, so be ready to meet when I do. Just like that, everything shifted. The room felt smaller. The future felt closer. My whole world tilted. I wasn't thinking about prom anymore. I wasn't thinking about tuxes or dances or hallway moments. I was thinking about leaving. When I told Donita, she didn't get loud. She didn't get sharp. She didn't throw fire. She cried. Not the frustrated tears from prom. Not the overwhelming tears from the broken purse. These were different tears. These were quiet. They were real. She didn't want to lose whatever it was we had just started to understand and create. And I didn't know how to hold that moment, but I knew it meant something. The shift. Everything after that moved fast. Packing, paperwork, goodbyes. But the truth stayed with me. Prom wasn't about the dance. It wasn't about the outfit. It wasn't about the drama. It was about the moment in that hallway, the teddy bear on the doorstep, the sound of her voice on the phone, and the way her tears hit me when I told her I was leaving. It was the night I realized I could be someone's calm, someone's steady, someone who shows up when it matters. And that changed everything. The bog and the boundary. But before I can tell you about the call from the recruiter that changed everything, I have to take you back to a moment that defined who I was becoming. Some memories don't fit neatly in a timeline. They're just a foundation. I was 14 or 13, a freshman in high school when I became a movie star, at least by Southside standards. My mom worked with a guy named David McGowan, who was looking for kids to be in educational films. I was 14, but I was small and looked 12, so I got the part. It was the first time I felt like someone saw something special in me. The first shoot was in Indiana, in this place called The Bog. I was staying at my dad's house in K-Town on the west side and had to be at my mom's on the south side by 7 o'clock for pickup. Like clockwork, my father didn't drive me. I spent the early morning hours piecing the city together like a puzzle. Bus to train, train to bus, determined not to miss my shot. I spent the day jumping on the ground and shaking the trees, filming an ecosystem documentary. Because when you jumped on the ground in the bog, the trees around you shook. I found that really interesting. They loved my work so much, they hired me for a second movie in the city. I was reliable, I was chosen, and I was making $200 a day. That bog money is what bought my Olympians and the spray-painted Nikes. It was the first time I felt the pride of earning my own way. In part 2, I became a director. I asked them, I said, hey, I'm supposed to be walking down this road with this girl after we came from the bog and we went to her house to look at these items under the microscope, these slides. What if I just started doing backflips, like 10 of them in a row? I think that'd be cool to have on camera. Everybody agreed. So as we walked, me and her, I told her, check this out. I ran, did a round off, did about 10 backflips. I became the star of the show. I knew how to take my moments and make them mean everything. Yeah. That was my time doing that. There's a lot of other things that I won't get into quite in this book about going over to the north side with my sister, spending time over there with my uncles, my cousins, how much of a ball we had when we were over there, how the world looked so different, getting on the train on 59th and King Drive, riding the train past vacant lots and abandoned buildings, places that had no grass, getting to downtown, and the train goes underground. So it's really dark for about 5 or 6 stops. Then the first time you come up and hit the next stop, Fullerton, near DePaul University, all of a sudden you see grass. It's green. The trees are full of leaves and life. It's all white people. I get off the train on Fullerton and walk past DePaul University, walk around and walk past Woolworths, right to where my sister stayed, right in that famous alley. The back of the house led to the famous alley where Dillinger was shot and killed after coming out of the movie theater. Those were fun times. That's a whole nother book. Right now, let's talk about the David confrontation. The work world wasn't the only place I was growing up. My mom started dating a guy named David, and he ended up giving me the most important lesson of my youth. I was at the house with my boy Marcus, not the sharp dresser Marcus, not the one who used to wear the riding boots and had the long trench coat, who, my friend, we used to go to school every day. This is another Marcus, my other friend Marcus. And so I got into it with my mom about something silly. Don't know quite what. Maybe it's I wanted to stay out longer than she was going to let me or something, I don't know. I was kind of yelling and acting out, and David stepped in. David was a big dude. He used to play football in high school and college, just to let you know how big this dude was. And I told you I was a small guy. But David was a real one, man. But so was I. And I needed what happened. I didn't back down. My chest was out. We were face to face. And I'm talking to this grown man like I was ready for war. He didn't really argue at all. He just grabbed me because I was wearing Marcus's coat. He had this nice, like leather type coat, blue. You know, it was blue. It wasn't leather. It was suede leather. But, you know, it was nice, man. It was blue. It had the little belt around the waist of it. And it had the white cotton lapels. And he was in my room. But he grabbed me, slammed me to the ground, like quick. Like I didn't feel it. It didn't hurt. It just showed me how powerful he was. And pinned me. I couldn't move. He was a big dude. That was nothing I can do. I'm trying to look mean on the floor, helpless. I stayed there on the floor yelling threats, telling him, wait till I get up, wait till I get up. He let me up. I was more embarrassed than anything. So I'm like, I'll be back, acting like I was going to come back with a weapon and do something. And I wasn't going to do nothing. I was just embarrassed. You know, I never had that mentality to kill a man. So I wasn't going to do anything. Now, later in life, after what the Navy taught me, that's different. But then, I was innocent and wholesome. It was all noise. I wasn't built for that life at that moment. And deep down, I knew it. Looking back, I needed that check. If he hadn't put me in my place right then, I might have kept pushing boundaries until I hit a wall I couldn't walk away from. I might have ran into somebody who was about that life right then and there. And they would have shot first, asked questions later. Fortunately, I wasn't the bully. I was just the kid that never backed down from the bully. Also, fortunately, the bullies I ran into didn't pull out guns. It was a different time. It was a different era. But David taught me that being a man wasn't about who can yell the loudest. It was about respect and how you earn that. The shift. The lessons in that house, but I must say this before I move forward. David and I became like best friends after that. Because I respected him. I respected him for doing that. I respected him for loving my mother enough to do that. He would talk to me about rap music because he was into rap music and he wanted to hear the stuff that I liked, like the Ghetto Boys. And it surprised me so much because a lot of people didn't understand the Ghetto Boys, but me and David, we did. Devin the Dude, Bushwick Bill, all that crazy stuff they was talking. Yeah, we was all for that. The lessons in the house and the lessons on the screen started to blend together. Around that time, me, Marcus, Donita, and her friend became a unit. We were always together, navigating the neighborhood and our own growing feelings. One night, the stars aligned. Donita was over, and we wanted to night. My mom, being the structure of my life, gave me a simple rule. Ask her mother. If she says yes, then it's fine. We walked to Donita's house, got her a change of clothes, and walked back. We told my mom her mom said it was okay. Whether that was 100% true or a negotiated version, that's between me and the streets and Donita. We didn't do anything but bumper grind that night, out of respect for my moms. However, we planned a day home from school afterwards. We played hooky a few days later. We ditched school, went to my house, fooled around on the way up the stairs, went in, went to my room, and the magnetism was unbelievable. I remember this day vividly. Laying down, we fell asleep for a couple of hours. I remember watching all my children in General Hospital, The Edge of Night, all that, because I was so nervous on how to just initiate the process. Remember, I was a virgin. So we got naked. And if you've been following the long story, you know that I was still a virgin at the time. Now, for those of you who are related to me, you might want to close your ears or fast forward for about maybe 30 seconds. Because I want to get a little detailed. All right, ready? Here we go. So I rubbed my fingers across my mouth. I reached down to touch her. With the little bit of saliva on my fingertips, I felt the legs start to relax. And my fingers started to slowly fall into her. I felt her wetness. It lubricated my whole hand pretty much, especially my fingers as they slid deeper and deeper. I felt her wetness traveling along my hand and everything getting slippery. She was wet enough for me to then grab myself and lubricate myself with her wetness. She reached down. I felt her soft hand wrap around me and pull me towards her. It was time, man. I was melting. Felt myself going inside. A feeling that's virtually indescribable. You know what it is. She grabbed my ass and pulled me all the way in. She moaned in ecstasy. I moaned in disbelief, but I wasn't all the way in. She didn't know that yet, but I did. I pushed deeper, felt her nails grip on my back and dig in. Her nails were piercing my skin and my flesh peeling under pressure of her fingernails, but it felt too good to stop. And she seemed to enjoy the pleasure and the pain equally. I felt warm, I felt loved, I felt pleasure. I felt so many great emotions that it was extremely overwhelming for me. Her moans were getting to me, too erotic for me. They just made me want her more and more, and I couldn't take it anymore. Things just started to happen in my body. All my senses seemed to shut down. Suddenly, without warning, I felt like I had to go to the restroom. And I tried to tell myself, no, Nate, now is not the time. But it was too late. I couldn't stop it. It was going to come regardless of what I did. So I just kept going, and I pulled out, and the fire hose went wild. All over her stomach, all over her breast. It wasn't pee. I was embarrassed until she touched me on my chest, said, hey, it's okay, grabbed me, put me back into her, and pulled me up against her chest. Tupac said it best. Heaven ain't hard to find. In fact, you can find it, just have faith. It's like a little kid still believing in magic. I was in heaven. Okay, we back. That night changed the frequency of my world. We were moving from hanging out to something deeper, something permanent. This was the girl who would eventually ruin me. But as we walked back to the house, their bag of clothes, all I felt was the wind. And the wind. I had my girl, I had my hustle, and I was about to find out exactly what it meant to have a real relationship in Chicago. The alleyways of the Chi. Trust is a heavy thing to carry when you're 17. My mom letting Donita sleep in my bed that night wasn't just about change of clothes and the sleepover. It was a testament to the man she thought I was. We honored that trust, keeping things innocent on the innocent side, holding each other, talking through the dark, and just being close. But being 17 also means having a restless spirit and a taste for the forbidden. Around that time, my mom bought her first car. It was a humble machine. It was nice. I think it was a Honda, and her second one was a Honda XL. Honda XL, I think it was. Cracked windshield, no plates. More of a driveway ornament than a street cruiser. But to me, those keys sitting in the closet were a ticket to the world. My mom was in bed at 9, like clockwork. And as soon as the house went quiet, I'd pull my index card move on the closet door, slip out, slide behind the wheel, navigate the car through dark alleys of Chicago to get to Donita's house. No license, no plates, just me in the shadows. One night, as I was getting ready to drive over Donita's house, I'm going through the alleys. A song crackled through the radio that changed my life. Parents Just Don't Understand by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. When that verse about him stealing his parents' car hit the speakers and the cops pulling him over, I felt like that was definitely a sign. Nate, take your ass home. Put this car up. Oh man, I never made a U-turn so quick. I turned that car around, parked it precisely where I found it, and never touched those keys again. That song scared me straight back to the house. The soundtrack of 17. My room was my kingdom, and my 8-track player sat on the headboard like a crown. While the Christmas jams of my childhood were still in the drawer, a new sound was taking over. I'm an assassin. Ghetto boys, ghetto boys. As I walked the 5th ward, I saw this man. He was kind, but he was blind. I snatched a jury and ran. I caught up with Buck. I said, I think it's Ripper Grand. He smiled, then he giggled, then he shook my hand. Man, that was the first song. It was crazy, and I loved it. I loved the craziness of that song. The next verse, he was talking about, he called up with his teacher and said, "Get in, you old fool." She offered the keys, cried and said, "Please." She promised not to tell and give me A's and B's. I said, "I want your money, grubber, and all I could sell." I looked into her face and she was scared as hell. And then Bushwick's verse. He talked about taking a lady that he met on the street, a street worker, home. And he didn't want to pay her. And she said, "Welcome to the disease that there is no cure for." He got started and almost got away. With no clothes, I gave chase, making sure she'd pay. Oh, man. Yeah, that was a song right there. Ghetto boys and some man assassin. Yeah, the heart-shaped hustle. After that day, we were inseparable. It was young love in its purest, messiest form. But with that intensity came the friction. Donita had a fire in her. She was dominant, quick to snap, and always ready to run the show. My friends saw it before I did. They'd tell me, "Man, she's always yelling at you," or "She got you on a leash." But I was too deep in the fog to care. I thought that's what love looked like. When the arguments got too loud, I retired to my sanctuary, my grandmother's backyard, basketball hoop. I'd catch the bus to 108th and Vincennes, and she lived a block away on Church. She lived on, it was like a house/apartment. She lived on the 2nd floor. My auntie also lived on the 2nd floor. She was a Jehovah's Witness. In another part, like a separate apartment part of the house, it was like a house but apartment at the same time. I keep wanting to say Colleen, but that's not the auntie. Mary. And I used to love Mary so much. Because when we were over there, she used to give us a quarter if we could name stuff in the Bible. And if we can remember things in the Bible, she would give us a quarter or give us an orange, fruit. I don't know. It was fun to me. On the 1st floor, my Aunt Esther, my mother's sister, and her husband, German, who was my father's brother. They lived on the 1st floor, and the triplets, and Antoine. And then in the basement, my Aunt Yvonne, she lives. She was the fun one. She was the one who, like, my Aunt Esther and Uncle German, like, he played golf and, like, she worked for the post office. So, like, they were, like, the successful ones and, like, I don't know, like, upper class kind of. But my Aunt Yvonne, she did everything. She worked on a garbage truck. She was the one, but she smoked weed and she used to always play old school jams. Like when I was in the Navy, she's the one who sent me like a mixtape of old school Dusties and Won't You Take Me to Funky Town? All that, man, she was, yeah. So I love going over there and her son Greg, baby Greg, and yeah, those were the days. So back then, I used to go over there, even when nobody was home, and I love to go over there and just shoot basketball hoops in the back because it was a hoop attached to the garage, and it was just so peaceful over there. Like the whole neighborhood, it looked like that's where rich people. So that's where I always strive to live. I always wish that I could buy that house one day. I never got a chance to, but man, I always wanted to like buy that house. So at that time, I was working at Jules Osco by then. And I remember taking my hard-earned tip money and buying her a massive harp-shaped cookie, iced out and decorated to the nines. It was the first time I'd ever really spent money on a woman. Seeing her face when I gave it to her made me feel like I finally arrived. I was the provider, the protector, and the boyfriend. I was like 17. I was in love, and I had no idea that the call from the recruiter was about to pull the rug out from underneath all of it. The grinder and the leg. When that call finally came, the reality hit me like a physical weight. I hung up the phone and walked into the bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror, trying to find the soldier in my face of the kid I still was. Donita followed me in. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, like she was trying to hold herself together. But the moment our eyes met, she broke that deep, gut-wrenching sound of someone who knows things will never be the same. Then my mom came in. She had that look on her face, that classic Chicago mother look, proud, sad, but determined to be the anchor that we all needed. He packed my life into a small bag. It didn't take long. When you're young, you think you have a lot, but it turns out most of it is just noise. The essentials fit into one duffel bag. The rest stayed behind. The drive to the recruiting station felt like a slow goodbye. The city rolled past the windows. The same streets I walked, the same corners I hung out on, the same blocks that shaped me. But they looked different now, like they were already fading into memory. When it was time to board the van for Great Lakes, the air felt thin. I walked toward that van and Donita was just coming apart. My mom was holding her, whispering that it was going to be all right. But as I climbed in and waved out the back window, I felt the shift in the atmosphere. And in that moment, even though I didn't know it yet, something shifted. That was the last time Donita was truly my woman. The distance had already started its work. The aluminum alarm. Great Lakes at night, like a jarring introduction to the military machine. It's a blur of fluorescent lights, barked orders, and a chemical smell of industrial floor wax. We went through the frantic cycle of in-processing, handing over our civilian clothings, our civilian threads, getting issued sea bags, and being tossed into the barracks. I looked around the intake center and actually spotted a couple of guys I'd gone to school with. We were all in the same sinking boat, eyes wide and mouths shut. Me and Terrell Fontaine came in on a buddy program, but he wound up not coming to Great Lakes. He wanted to go to San Diego. Ain't that something? The Navy's first lesson is that privacy is a dead concept. We were all in the middle of a group shower. 50 naked guys trying to wash off the city when the whistle screamed loud enough to crack the tiles. The water cut off instantly. We didn't cut it off. It just cut off, leaving us shivering. Out! Get out now! Now! The RDCs were screaming. We ran out there with soap still stinging our skin, scrambling to get in line, while some dudes with a campaign while some dude, big ass hat, yelled his lungs out, inches from our faces. Just as I managed to drift into a shallow sleep, On the mattress that felt like a slab of concrete, the world exploded again. Bam! An aluminum trash can came flying down the center of the floor, clanking, ranging like a bell from hell. It was flipping over racks, flipping on lights, throwing mattresses, and screaming for us to get on the line. I realized then that boot camp wasn't just school. It was a psychological wrecking ball designed to see who would crack under the pressure. The mental game. I knew I was always good at that. So they had us jogging everywhere. We couldn't walk a single inch on the base without double time pace. The pavement or the grinder, that massive asphalt parade ground, became my new home. The punishment was constant and creative. Someone would sneak a soda from the machine at night, thinking they were slick, and the whole division would pay the price at 0400. They had a special kind of math for push-ups. They could only officially give you 20, but they make those 20 push-ups last an eternity. It would be like down, up, down, halfway up, down, halfway up, down, halfway up, down, halfway up, down, up. 2. I watched guys crumble. There was this dude named George from my school. He was a kind of a bigger guy, muscular, who used to flex in the hallways and act like he was like tough, but he was a good dude. So he never was a bully or nothing. He was a nice dude, but he was like muscular, bigger guy. Man, he was one of the first to crack. He was throwing up. Not me. He completely folded by the 3rd week. But me? Nah, I never broke. I watched people cheating, putting their knees down when the instructors weren't looking, but I didn't need no shortcut. I had that. I had that black man in a white world focus and a South Side grit. I just kept my eyes locked on the floor and told myself somebody will break before me, but it won't be me. I lived through Chicago winters and the neighborhood bullies. A drill sergeant with a trash can could never break me, and they didn't. The guard and the cadence. Even in the Navy, I was a player. I was chosen for guard duty downstairs at night. A 4-hour shift that usually started at midnight. It was a lonely post. Just me and the hum of the vending machines, watching shadows off the base. But I had discovered a crack in the system. I knew how to dial out on the office phones. I spent 2.5 hours on my watch on the phone with Donita. Hearing her voice while the rest of the world slept was my secret fuel. We'd talk about the future, about the neighborhood, and about letters she was sending. I was probably one of the guys who got the most mail in the whole division. She sent me cookies, candy, and because I knew some of the boys weren't getting any mail from home, I let them read my letters, just so they could feel some connection to the world outside. They'd be opening my mail and eating my cookies and Twizzlers, and I was cool with it. I kept the unit tight. My whole family was sending stuff. By the 6th week, the power dynamic shifted. That's when you get your white leggings, man. In the Navy, once you get those white leggings, that's a badge of honor. Once you rock them, you're no longer a boot. You're the bomb of the base. You can walk with your head high. And I do mean walk. You don't have to run no more once you get the white leggings. I wanted to be in triple threat. That's the elite drill team that flipped all the M1 Garand rifles. But the commander had other plans. He wanted my voice. I became the section leader who called the cadence. I didn't just shout, I flowed. I brought that Chicago hip-hop architecture to the march, turning the military drill into a street anthem. I'd have 40 people repeating after me as we hit the turnstile drills. I didn't get to tell y'all in this book how I became that dude in Chicago rapping. But I did after I beat Sinbad the Slayer, the hottest guy who went to my school, in a rap battle in high school. I prepared for that day probably for a year. I knew it would happen when one day we was in the park across the street from school. Everybody was out there. He was just rapping and rapping and rapping, and everybody was crowding, and everybody knew him. He was on the radio station and everything. And somebody said, "Hey, McFlashy," that was my name, McFlashy. "Hey, McFlashy, go ahead and spit that rap you told me." So people looked at me, and I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm okay." And of course, like he would, I knew he would. He was like, "Nah, go ahead and spit that rap." I was like, "All right." So I rapped whatever rap that was, but it wasn't the one I had for him. After I said that rap, he said a rap. He directed it towards me. And everybody was like, that was the time. That was the moment I was supposed to walk away with my head down or back away or laugh it off and say, "You got that? You got that?" He wasn't prepared, but I was. I waited till everybody calmed down just a little bit. What did I do? If you know me, you already know. Sinbad the Slayer, you better say a prayer. Come up against the seaboard, you better not dare. Rocking and cutting the beat against suckers who try to compete. You just weak, sweet, and obsolete. Blum, 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 blum. And then at the end of my rap, because I don't remember all of it, at the end of the rap, I said something that went like this. "You're like the candy that they call Reese's. First you were whole, but now you in pieces." That was it. Nobody let me say anything else. The crowd roared. That was the end of the battle. The crowd came in and took me away. That's a win. He might not want to think that's a win, but that's definitely a win. Because he never rapped against me again. That's the last moment that a lot of people took from the rap scene. That's a win. So fast forward, and they want me to be a drill sergeant because I was rapping in boot camp. And next thing you know, hound dog, have you heard? Hound dog, have you heard? Hound dog, what you say? So let me set this up. So I'm making the chant that everybody, repeat after. And whenever we'll walk past another, I'd say something like, hound dog, what you say? Hound dog, what you say? When you see us, get out the way. When you see us, get out the way. Hound dog, who you trust? Hound dog, who you trust? Ain't nobody on the bass sound. Wait, ain't nobody on the bass gotta sound like us. Ain't nobody on the bass gotta sound like us. Left, right, left, right. Left, right, left, right. Turnstile. And I say turnstile, all of a sudden we do these intricate marches that we go into each other and break down. And man, I loved that. Telling you, once you got them leggings, then you put me as the person shouting the commands. That was I'm sure the base never seen nothing like us. We marched past other units, with our boots hitting the ground with a thud, and I turn it up. I hear the other teams whisper, "Oh man, they hot." I had our unit popping, interchanging, merging like a choreographed dance. I was proud of that rhythm. It was the one thing the Navy couldn't take from me, man. Yeah, that was when I found out I can be who I am anywhere in the world. I don't have to change who I am for nobody. I bring the value. The long walk to graduation. Graduation day arrived, biting cold. It was a marathon of discipline, standing at attention on the parade deck for 8 hours or at parade rest for 8 hours. The sun was out, but offered no heat. I watched recruits to my left, to my right, fainting, their knees locking up until they hit the deck like falling trees. But I stood like a statue. I cannot be broken. My father, my sister, my mom, and Donita were all in the stands, their faces blurred by the distance. When the ceremony finally ended and the order was given to dismiss, the Dixie cups went flying. That's the hats, by the way, the white hats, into the air. Most guys tossed theirs high, but I faked it through mine. I'm a man who likes to keep his property, and I wasn't about to lose my cover in a sea of white hats. As we broke ranks, everybody was wondering who I was going to leave the base with. My family was there expecting me to hop in the car with them. But you know, man, my heart was tied to the girl who had sent me those cookies. Stayed on the phone with me at 2 o'clock in the morning. I looked at my folks and said, I'm riding with Donita. I'll catch up with y'all later. I spent the week of leave wrapped up with her, trying to ignore the looming shadow of the orders in my pocket. I was a hero for a week, a Southside kid who had made it through the fire. But the buddy program friend I was supposed to ship out with had been delayed by summer school, meaning I was heading to Norfolk, Virginia, on my own, and he was going to head to San Diego. Think it's better he did, because I don't know if he could have handled Chicago, Great Lakes. I was a U.S. sailor now, but as I packed my sea bag for the last time in Chicago, I realized the innocent I'd fought so hard to keep was finally starting to slip away. The Iron City and the Horizon. Chapter 10. I'll stop here so that this can be a 3-part series. And the next part will start here on Chapter 10 and go all the way through Chapter 15. And then I'll start Book 2. So thank you for listening. Keep this in mind.
The Ela frequency. Got that eternal feeling so right. Welcome to the Ela Frequency Podcast. Turn the world down, tune in your soul now. Ela Frequency Podcast.